In September 1940, a German reconnaissance pilot stares through his camera sight and cannot believe what he is seeing. Below him lies a perfect British airfield. Dozens of fighter aircraft are lined up in neat dispersal points. Hangars, fuel bowsers, maintenance trucks, even the dark stains of oil on the ground. It is exactly the kind of target the Luftwaffe is desperate to find. He presses the shutter again and again, convinced he has just discovered a gold mine for G-Ring. He has no idea that most of what he is photographing is made of wood and canvas. Hours later, in a dimly lit room somewhere near Lille, those same photographs are spread across a table. A Luftwaffe intelligence officer, Hauptmann Klaus Meinhardt, leans over them with a magnifying glass. He has spent months studying the British air defense network, radar masts, fighter bases, supply depots. The new airfield on his desk looks almost too good to be true. Almost. He traces the outline of the runway with a pencil. Clear taxiways, correct dispersal points, logical layout, shadows that match the height of hangars. On paper, it all checks out. And yet, something about it bothers him. He flips to another photograph, taken 3 days earlier. The same location is almost empty. A week before that, just fields. Now, suddenly, a major fighter station appears out of nowhere, practically under the nose of German reconnaissance. That does not happen. Not without a reason. His adjutant, a young lieutenant, is practically vibrating with excitement. If this is real, Herr Hauptmann, it could be a forward fighter base supporting convoys in the Channel. We should recommend an immediate strike. Meinhardt does not answer at once. He has seen decoys before. Fake bridges. Dummy gun batteries. The British are not stupid. But they are also desperate. Their airfields are under constant attack. The Luftwaffe has already burned 6 of them to the ground. Would they really waste time and resources building something this elaborate just to fool a camera? He makes a decision that will change the lives of dozens of aircrew, though he does not know it yet. No mass bombing, not yet. We verify it first. Low-level reconnaissance. If it is real, we destroy it. If it is a trick, we will expose it. The scene cuts sharply to England a few weeks earlier. A real British airfield is dying in fire. Bombs walk down the runway in a straight line, each impact a brutal punctuation mark. A hangar bursts open like a tin can, spewing fragments of aircraft and burning fuel. A pilot, no more than 22, lies face down near a slit trench, his flying helmet still on his head, one boot missing. Ground crews drag hoses across shattered concrete, trying to save what little remains. The air smells of cordite, aviation fuel, and burned rubber. In a temporary operations room hastily set up in a village hall, Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding listens as an exhausted station commander reports the damage over a crackling telephone line. Runway cratered. Main hangar gone. 6 aircraft destroyed. 4 pilots killed. 2 missing. Repair crews can fix the runway in a few days, but the pilots are gone forever. This is not an isolated disaster. This is happening again and again all over southern England. On a wall-sized map, someone has pushed too many red pins into the same small area. Each pin is an airfield hit, a runway cratered, a squadron pushed a little closer to the breaking point. Fighter Command is not just fighting the Luftwaffe in the sky. It is fighting a quiet war of arithmetic on the ground. How many aircraft exist? How many can be repaired? How many airfields still function? How many pilots are left who can land on those airfields without collapsing from exhaustion? In that suffocating atmosphere, a strange idea begins to take shape. If the Germans want to bomb airfields, what if you give them more airfields than they can handle? Not by building new real ones, but by creating ghosts. Places that exist only for the enemy's cameras. Targets that soak up precious bombs and attention, leaving the real ones just a little safer. It sounds insane. It also sounds, in a brutal way, logical. An intelligence officer named Peter Lucas sits at a long wooden table covered in reconnaissance photos. His eyes are red from lack of sleep. He pushes aside images of smashed hangars and cratered runways to focus on something else. Patterns. He sees how often German reconnaissance planes revisit certain areas. He sees how quickly the Luftwaffe reacts when it thinks it has found concentration of aircraft. And then a question hits him with the force of a physical blow. What if we could make them see what we want them to see, instead of what is actually there? The proposal that follows is not wrapped in poetic language. It is cold, clinical, and ruthless. Build an airfield that is not an airfield. Populate it with aircraft that cannot fly. Make it look active. Make it look important. Make it look vulnerable. And then let the Germans waste their effort destroying something that was never alive in the first place. Real bombs. Fake targets. Real German crews flying into flak and fighters, all for the sake of burning plywood. This is not a game. Everyone in the room understands the moral weight of the decision. For this deception to work, German pilots and aircrew will die attacking a ghost. But if they do not, British pilots and ground crews will continue to die on very real runways at very real airfields that cannot be replaced. In that brutal equation, the choice begins to look less like a trick and more like survival. The man chosen to turn this idea into reality is not a general, but an artist. Norman Wilkinson, a marine painter who once made entire fleets vanish at sea using bold, jagged camouflage, walks through a muddy field in Kent while an RAF officer explains the plan. Here will be the runway. There the hangars. Over there, the dispersal points. From the ground, it is just farmland. From the air, it must become something entirely different. Wilkinson does not laugh. He does not tell them they are mad. Instead, he imagines the scene from 10,000 feet up. Shapes, lines, shadows, patterns. He understands instinctively that this is not just construction. It is theater. Except this stage is built for an audience of hostile pilots and distant analysts. And a bad review does not mean a lost job. It means dead men. The team he assembles looks almost absurd on paper. Theater set designers working alongside military engineers. Film studio carpenters arguing with RAF intelligence officers about where exactly to place a fake fuel bowser. A props expert from a London studio explaining how to make canvas look like corrugated metal, while a royal engineer calculates how much load a dummy aircraft wing must bear in the wind. These are not typical weapons of war. Yet everyone in that field knows that if they succeed, this lie will be as deadly as any fighter squadron. Before a single wooden Spitfire can be built, they need to think like the enemy. What does a German camera see? What does a German analyst look for? For that, they turn to a young woman named Margaret Webb, an intelligence specialist who has spent months reading captured German reports and studying their aerial photographs. She spreads out real images of RAF stations on a makeshift table in a freezing hut near the site. She points out details that most people would never notice. Vehicle tracks that always curve in the same direction. Dark streaks where engines run at the same spot every morning. Small piles of discarded crates behind hangars. The conclusion is chilling. To fool the German eye, they cannot simply build shapes. They must build habits. They must build the illusion of routine. They must construct, from nothing, the everyday life of an airfield that has never existed. That means fake maintenance areas, fake fuel spills, fake wheel ruts, even fake laziness. A ladder left leaning against the side of a hangar, a tarp thrown carelessly over a crate, a cable run at a slightly wrong angle. These flaws do not weaken the deception. They complete it. As construction begins, time becomes a weapon on both sides. German bombers continue to smash real targets day after day. Real airfields continue to burn. But out in that quiet Kentish field, an impossible thing is slowly taking shape. Every new wooden fuselage that appears on the ground is a potential British aircraft that will not have to face a bomb. Every fake hangar is a real hangar somewhere else that might survive one more week. From above, as the first German reconnaissance aircraft drift back across the English countryside, a new pattern begins to appear on their film. Fresh runways where there were none before. New clusters of fighters where there was once just grass. To the men on the ground building this illusion, it feels like nudging fate itself. They are not just erecting structures, they are crafting a trap so convincing that one day, real crews in real aircraft will fly willingly into its jaws, believing with absolute certainty that they are attacking a vital British base. They will not realize the truth until it is far too late, when their wheels touch down on something that sounds wrong, feels wrong, and splinters under their weight. When that moment comes, the operation will already have a name, whispered half-jokingly among the British personnel watching from the shadows. A name that fits all too well. Operation Movie Set. The fake airfield in Kent does not begin as an airfield. It begins as a lie drawn in pencil on a mud-stained map, then dragged out into the cold wind and forced to become real. From the first day of construction, everyone involved knows that if this place looks fake to a German pilot for even a second, men will die somewhere else because of that failure. There is no second chance. Every plank, every canvas sheet, every brush stroke of paint either sells the illusion or shatters it. Norman Wilkinson stands ankle-deep in wet grass, looking at a bare field that is supposed to become a fully functioning RAF station in the eyes of the enemy. Beside him, an RAF officer reads off the requirements like a shopping list that makes no sense. One main runway, secondary taxiways, 6 hangars, dispersal pens for at least 30 fighters, fuel storage, ammo dumps, vehicle parks. All of it has to read as genuine from thousands of feet up, and yet none of it can function in reality. It is a paradox in timber and canvas. The first week is chaos. The men he has been given are not elite commandos. They are carpenters, stagehands, sign painters, a few engineers, and a handful of soldiers who were supposed to be recovering from wounds, not building illusions in muddy fields. They argue about measurements. They misjudge distances. They sink posts into the wrong spots. And over all of it hangs the constant pressure of the ticking clock. Somewhere in France, a German analyst is already looking at this patch of England and wondering why it is suddenly so interesting. The next set of photographs might show everything, or nothing. They start with the runway because that is what the German camera will look for first. In reality, it is nothing more than a strip of rolled earth, no concrete, no proper surfacing. But to a lens 30,000 feet above, texture disappears. What matters is shape, proportion, contrast. They mark out the edges in lime, then darken the tarmac using a mixture of coal dust, oil, and paint, applied in broad passes that look sloppy from ground level but blend perfectly from altitude. At the end of the first day, the runway looks ridiculous to anyone standing on it. It also looks uncomfortably convincing in the first test photographs taken from a low-flying RAF trainer. Next come the hangars. Real wartime hangars are substantial steel and brick constructions designed to withstand near misses and shrapnel. Wilkinson's hangars are skeletons, wooden frames thrown up at speed, draped in treated canvas, painted to imitate corrugated metal. From a distance, the illusion is striking. Up close, you can see daylight through the seams. The men reinforce nothing, because nothing has to hold. There will be no real aircraft inside, no fuel, no ammunition. If a German bomb hits one of these buildings dead center, the only thing that will die is a lie. But aircraft cannot live in hangars alone. The perimeter of the field must look alive. They lay out dispersal bays with the precision of an architect and the improvisation of a theater crew. Earthen banks are faked using stacked sandbags and chicken wire covered in soil. Grass is scuffed in artificial arcs where wheels never rolled. Men drag weighted boards across the ground to create convincing tire tracks, leading from pens to runways and back again. To anyone walking there, it feels like vandalism. To a camera lens, it reads as evidence of daily flight operations. The aircraft themselves become the heart of the project and its greatest gamble. The fake Spitfires and Hurricanes are not detailed models. They are silhouettes made solid. Each one is a timber frame cut to rough fuselage shape with plywood wings and tail surfaces covered in fabric and painted in RAF camouflage. No cockpit instruments, no engines, not even full landing gear. The wheels are often only visible from one side, because that is the side the Germans are most likely to photograph. They are lies optimized for a single angle. And yet, when the first dummy fighter is dragged into position and seen from a ladder at the right distance, even hardened RAF mechanics whistle in surprise. From the air, that will pass. Perfection would kill them. Wilkinson understands this faster than anyone. A real airfield is messy. People take shortcuts. Equipment piles up in the wrong place. Paint fades unevenly. So the team does something that feels completely wrong to men trained to work cleanly and neatly. They introduce mistakes on purpose. A line of aircraft that is not perfectly straight. A fuel bowser parked at an awkward angle. A ladder left lying in the grass. A tarpaulin thrown over a crate in a hurry, leaving one corner flapping free. Each imperfection is carefully planned. Each one is designed to look like something nobody planned at all. One afternoon, Margaret Webb arrives at the site with a stack of enlarged photographs under her arm and a grim expression on her face. The latest intercepted German imagery shows that Luftwaffe analysts are becoming suspicious of some British decoy sites elsewhere. They have spotted patterns, identical buildings repeated across different locations, vehicles that do not move between sorties, shadows that never change length. To avoid the same fate, this fake airfield has to break its own pattern constantly. So they design motion into a place that never really moves. The wooden fighters are built light enough that 4 men can pick one up and rotate it. Every few days, ground crews go out with ropes and brute force, dragging the aircraft into new positions, turning them a few degrees, shifting them between pens. Oil stains are extended, or partially washed away. New tire tracks are dragged into the mud after rain. A fake crate disappears from behind a hangar and reappears elsewhere. To an enemy analyst flipping through a sequence of photos, it looks like weeks of operational life. In reality, it is choreography. Then there is the problem of night. German reconnaissance does not stop when the sun goes down. Infrared photography and observation of lights on the ground can still reveal activity. A dead, dark airfield will look suspicious. So the team creates an after-hours performance. Simple lamps are rigged inside fake hangars to shine through slit windows, imitating maintenance work. Small shielded bulbs mark out the runway in a pattern familiar to bomber crews. In some cases, they even run short bursts of generator noise and vehicle engines at irregular intervals, just long enough to be picked up by a listening ear, then cut abruptly. Everything is aimed at selling one story. People work here, even when you cannot see them. The moral weight of what they are doing never completely disappears. One evening, as the sun drops behind a line of hedges and the airfield glows in orange light, an older carpenter named Harris stands staring at a row of wooden fighters. He asks, almost to himself, how many real German pilots will die because of these fakes? An RAF sergeant beside him does not look away from the runway when he answers, hopefully enough that some of ours do not. It is not bravado. It is resignation. This is what survival looks like now. Weeks pass. The fake aerodrome grows layer by layer, not just in structures but in story. A junk pile of broken crates appears behind a hangar. A line of fuel drums, made from painted concrete pipes, accumulates near a supposed storage area. A battered bicycle with a flat tire is left leaning against a wall. Nothing on this field actually works, but everything on it exists to convince someone hundreds of miles away that it does. The more ordinary it looks, the more deadly it becomes. Finally, the day comes when there is nothing left to add without tipping over into overacting. Wilkinson walks the perimeter one last time. From ground level, the place still feels wrong, like a film set waiting for actors who will never arrive. But the real audience is already overhead. Somewhere beyond the clouds, a German pilot is flying a straight line across Kent, with a camera bolted into his aircraft's belly. He will have only seconds over this target. As the drone of engines fades in and out above the clouds, the men on the ground freeze in place by instruction. No unnecessary movement, no cars, no visible human reaction to the threat. A real airfield under potential attack would have gone to ground too. That silence, that stillness, is part of the performance. The camera shutter clicks, unseen, capturing everything: runway, hangars, aircraft, tracks, stains. A complete, convincing portrait of a British fighter station that has never flown a single real sortie. When those images land on a desk in occupied Europe, the trap will no longer be just an idea or a construction site in a muddy field. It will be a target. And once the enemy accepts it as a target, the fake airfield stops being an illusion and becomes something far more dangerous, a weapon, waiting patiently for someone to pull the trigger from the wrong side. In the 3rd Air Fleet's operations room in Lille, the fake airfield in Kent exists only as grainy rectangles of gray and black on glossy paper. To the men in that room, those rectangles mean lives, fuel, and prestige. They also mean risk. The photographs are projected on a screen as the lights dim. Cigarette smoke hangs in the air. Men shift in their chairs. This is not a routine briefing. Everyone can feel it. At the front of the room, Hauptmann Klaus Meinhardt taps a pointer against the enlarged image. This is the new station, gentlemen. First appearance 3 weeks ago as faint groundworks. Second appearance, runway partially formed, no aircraft. Third, hangars. And this, he pauses, bringing up the latest image, is from 2 days ago. The room goes quiet. The slide shows a fully developed airfield, hangars, dispersal bays, at least 20 fighters parked in logical positions, service vehicles, fuel storage. On paper, it is the kind of target the Luftwaffe has been hunting for months. A staff officer at the back cannot help himself. That is a jewel. One well-planned strike and we could take out an entire squadron on the ground. He is already picturing the report, the numbers, the satisfaction of telling his superiors that another British nest has been wiped out. But not everyone in the room is ready to celebrate. Meinhardt has seen too many photographs, too many tricks. He flips to the earlier images again, letting the timeline burn itself into everyone's brain. Look at the speed of development, he says. Fields, then groundworks, then a nearly complete station in a matter of weeks. The British are under pressure. Their resources are stretched. And yet, we are to believe they have built a full operational fighter base, practically under our nose without us noticing until the last minute. Some officers shrug. The British are desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. But the doubt has been planted. After the briefing, in a smaller side room, the argument becomes sharper. The officer in charge of bomber targeting, Oberst Rainer Vogel, wants a heavy raid. He wants Heinkel 111s and Dornier 17s, loaded with high explosives and incendiaries, hitting the target in multiple waves. He wants craters, fires, a smashed runway, and destroyed aircraft. He wants to send a message. If this station is real, and we ignore it, he says, those fighters will be killing our bomber crews over the channel in 2 weeks. Meinhardt counters with something no one in uniform likes to hear. We might be about to waste our strength on an empty stage. He points to tiny details in the photos, the suspiciously clean edges of some shadows, the near textbook layout of the dispersal points, the way vehicle tracks seem to appear all at once rather than gradually. To most eyes, the pictures show a prize. To his, they show a possibility he cannot dismiss. A perfect British lie. Luftwaffe doctrine does not have much room for admitting that the enemy might be smarter than you. But by late 1940 and early 1941, the Germans have already stumbled over British decoy sites, fake factories, dummy gun positions, wooden oil tanks. Stories circulate in mess halls about bombs dropped on fields full of wooden cows. Some of those stories are jokes, some are uncomfortably true. The British, Vogel growls, are quite content to trick us into killing shadows. That is exactly why this must be checked, Meinhardt insists. If this is a decoy and we send a full bomber group, we not only waste bombs and fuel, we lose men for nothing. If it is real and we do not hit it, we risk those fighters shooting down 10 times as many of our aircrew. The room understands the cruel balance. Either choice will cost lives. The only question is whose. The compromise is harsh and neat. No mass raid yet. Instead, a low-level reconnaissance flight. 1 aircraft, 2 men. They will fly in under the clouds, at an altitude where flak is deadly and British fighters are not far away. They will take detailed photographs, observe activity, and return. If they confirm that the station is genuine, the bomber crews will follow. If they discover a stage set, the airfield will be marked as a decoy and left to rot under its own illusion. It sounds clinical when written as an order. It does not feel clinical to the men who will fly it. The task falls to a crew with a reputation for getting out of bad situations alive. Oberleutnant Friedrich Adler, a pilot in his late 20s with a face prematurely lined by stress, and his observer and radio operator, Unteroffizier Ernst Hoch. They fly a twin-engined aircraft, modified for reconnaissance. Fast, with cameras in the belly and extra fuel in the wings. They have flown over England before. They know the pattern. Climb over the channel, level out at high altitude. Stay in the cold, thin air, where the British fighters struggle to reach you. Get your pictures and go home. This time, the briefing sounds different. The intelligence officer traces a line on the map with his finger. You will approach from the sea at medium altitude to avoid early detection, then drop down below the cloud base for the run over the target. We need altitude no more than 1,000 meters for the resolution required. That means you will be within range of light flak and rapid fighter interception. He does not bother to soften it. There is no way to make this sound safe. Hoch studies the aerial photographs taped to the wall, memorizing the shapes. Hangars here, runway aligned this way, dispersal points along this arc. He needs to be able to identify everything in seconds out of a side window while turbulence tries to throw his head into the ceiling. Adler remains quiet until the room empties, then asks the question that has been sitting in his throat. And if it is a trap? If they are waiting? The intelligence officer gives the only answer he can. Then you will use your judgment. Get what you can. Get out alive, if you can. In the quiet moments before takeoff, as ground crew check fuel lines and control surfaces in the gray half-light of early morning, the difference between real and fake airfields becomes something painfully personal. Adler walks around his aircraft, hand on cold metal, feeling the weight of the mission in the knots in his stomach. Somewhere across the channel, men have built an airfield so convincing that his own side is willing to bet his life on whether it is real or not. If it is genuine, he will be the one who enables its destruction. If it is fake, he will be the one who saves countless others from flying into a pointless ambush. None of that will matter if his aircraft does not make it back. He climbs into the cockpit, straps in, and glances briefly at the small, worn photograph tucked into the side of the instrument panel. A woman and a baby, taken in a park in Hamburg before the war became total. Hoch squeezes past him into his position, adjusting his harness, checking the radio. They do not say anything heroic. They do not need to. The engines start with a cough and a roar, and the aircraft rolls towards the runway, joining the long line of missions launched on the quiet assumption that not all of them will return. At the same time, across the channel in England, people who will never know Adler's name are preparing for the possibility of exactly this flight. British radar stations scan the sky for blips that mean trouble. Fighter squadrons sit at readiness, pilots half asleep in chairs or on camp beds, boots untied but close at hand. Anti-aircraft gunners check their sights and curse the cold. None of them know about the fake airfield in Kent in detail. Most believe it to be just another site on a long list of targets and decoys. But the machinery that might one day close around a single German reconnaissance aircraft is already humming quietly in the background. Back in Lille, in the operations room, Meinhardt marks the reconnaissance flight on the board with a small symbol. He has done this hundreds of times. Some of those symbols never came back. He tells himself this one will. Not because he is sentimental, but because he needs the answers that aircraft can bring. The debate over the Kent airfield has sharpened something in him. This is no longer just about scoring a tactical victory. It is about not being made a fool of by an enemy whose greatest weakness has always been presented as lack of imagination. As Adler's aircraft lifts off into the low French cloud, the stakes of the deception on the other side of the channel become brutally clear. A fake airfield is no longer just a clever idea or a construction site full of carpenters and paint. It has become a question that men are going to risk their lives to answer. Real engines, real fuel, real fear in the cockpit, all deployed to decide whether a piece of English farmland is metal and concrete or nothing but theater. The line between shadow and substance has never been thinner. The British have built an illusion so large that it has pulled real men and machines into its orbit. The Germans, unwilling to trust either their arrogance or their caution entirely, have chosen to send one aircraft to stare directly into that illusion and decide which side of the line it belongs on. And somewhere over the channel, flying into gray sky and uncertainty, two men are about to find out that some stages are built not for actors, but for victims. At 10,000 feet above the English coast, Oberleutnant Friedrich Adler's aircraft breaks through the cloud and into a sky that looks deceptively peaceful. For a few seconds, there is only the vibration of the engines and the hiss of air over metal. Then the first radar station picks him up, and the quiet sky starts to move against him, in ways he cannot see yet, but will feel very soon. In a darkened room on the British side, an operator bends over a cathode screen and frowns at a new blip sliding across the green glow. Single contact, coming in from the channel at medium altitude, speed consistent with a twin-engined aircraft. Not a bomber formation, not a wandering stray. This looks like a reconnaissance flight. The information moves up the chain in seconds. Filter room, group headquarters, sector station. A simple line on a map, drawn with a wax pencil, suddenly matters very much. At an RAF fighter station already hammered by weeks of raids, a bell clangs, and men who are trying to sleep with boots on their feet jerk upright. Pilots grab helmets, life vests, maps. A controller in the operations room stabs a finger at the plotting table. 2 aircraft only. We are not here to shoot him down over the sea. We want him over land. We want him looking at the right thing. Scramble a section. Hold the rest on readiness. The pilots do not know about the fake airfield in Kent in detail, but they understand the outline. There is a place the Germans must believe in. If this contact is one of the men sent to judge that place, then killing him too early ruins everything. The idea of not simply blasting an enemy aircraft out of the sky feels wrong to some of them. They have lost friends to reconnaissance flights that calmly photographed their airfields one day and guided bombers onto them the next. But the order is clear. This is not a normal interception. Adler feels the first hint of trouble when his radio crackles with a terse warning from ground control. British fighters active. Maintain heading for now. He glances sideways through the canopy, eyes scanning for dots that move the wrong way. Hoch, hunched over his equipment, keeps his voice steady as he calls out distance and time to the target. Clouds ahead. Once they drop below them, there will be no more hiding. The plan on the German side is simple on paper. Descend below the cloud base near the coast. Make a low, fast pass over the suspected airfield. Capture as many photographs as possible. Observe any visible activity. Climb back into the cloud and turn for home. Every part of that plan assumes an enemy reacting too slowly or too predictably to stop them. It does not account for an enemy who wants them alive long enough to fall for a trap. As Adler noses the aircraft down, the world tightens. The soft, distant shapes of land become hard lines. Hedgerows, roads, patches of woodland. Smoke from some distant factory, or perhaps from a city still dying from last night's raid. Buffeting turbulence grips the aircraft as they drop into denser air. Now they are flying at the height where small-caliber guns and angry men with binoculars can reach them. On the ground, near the fake airfield, British anti-aircraft crews are under strict instructions. Do not fire unless ordered. Do not reveal positions too early. If a single German reconnaissance machine comes in alone, the priority is not to kill it, but to hurt it. Nearby, at a real fighter station, the section that scrambled earlier is now being vectored with a strange precision. Not to the nearest intercept point, but to a path that will let them appear at exactly the right angle and distance to frighten, not obliterate. The first Spitfire Adler sees is behind and above him, a small, sharp shape sliding across the corner of his canopy. A second later, there is another on the opposite side. They are not in the killing position. They are too far back, too high, off angle. If they were here to destroy him, they would already be rolling into attack runs. Instead, they sit there, silent threats, forcing him lower, forcing him forward. Hoch feels the hair rise on the back of his neck. "They are shepherding us," he says quietly over the intercom. Adler does not answer. He is too busy flying the narrow corridor between panic and control. To turn back now, with fighters already in position, would mean presenting his vulnerable rear to guns that can chew through his aircraft in seconds. To climb would mean handing them the altitude advantage. Forward, for the moment, is the least terrible option. Ahead, through the milky light below the clouds, the lines of the Kent countryside begin to align themselves into something more specific. Hoch presses his face to the side window, eyes searching for the shapes he memorized in the briefing room in Lille. Hangars here, runway there, dispersal bays along that arc. When he finally sees them, the shock is physical. It is all there, exactly where the photographs said it would be. The airfield below looks alive. The runway is clear and dark, with lighter grass around it. Hangar roofs catch the light. The faint suggestion of aircraft shapes glints at dispersal points. Tracks, stains, the geometry of daily operations. From 1,000 meters up, at over 300 kilometers per hour, there is no time to question the texture of paint or the weight of shadow. There is only recognition. The target exists. Hoch's hand moves automatically to the camera controls. The mechanism in the belly of the aircraft starts its cold, relentless sequence. Click, click, click. Each exposure is a frozen slice of the lie below. To him, in this moment, it is not a lie. It is evidence. He calls out details as they streak past. Multiple single-engine fighters, hangars fully constructed, no obvious bomb damage. On the ground, British observers watch the twin-engined silhouette thunder overhead. They see no bombs fall, no attack run, just a straight pass with a slight bank to expose the camera. It is exactly what they hoped for. The German crew has taken the bait at first glance. Now comes the most dangerous part: letting them live long enough to be captured. As Adler pulls away from the airfield and prepares to turn back towards the coast, the Spitfires finally move. One drops suddenly from above, cutting across his nose at an angle that makes his stomach lurch. Another slides into a position off his wingtip, close enough that he can see the pilot's head turn toward him. They are no longer distant threats. They are right there, filling the sky with hard choices. A short burst of tracer flashes past his propeller arc, high and wide. Warning, not kill. Every instinct Adler has screams at him to dive, to jink, to make himself a harder target. But every maneuver he considers ends with him in a worse situation. Slower, lower, with a Spitfire lining up behind him. For a fraction of a second, he realizes that he is not leading this encounter at all. He is being steered. The British fighters start to squeeze him away from the coast, angling their presence so that every time he tries to turn seaward, a Spitfire is there, waiting. Another burst of fire, closer this time, rakes the air just ahead of his nose. The message could not be clearer if it were written on the clouds. Not that way. This way. In the operations room below, a controller's finger traces the German aircraft's track as spot reports come in. He is turning. Good. Keep pressuring him. Do not hit him hard enough to force him into the ground. We want him scared, not dead. Bring him down in the box. The box, on their map, is the airspace directly above the fake airfield and its ring of hidden guns. Adler's engines howl as he tries to climb, but the Spitfires match him easily. Hoch, looking back through the narrow windows, sees one of them close in, guns clearly visible now. Another burst. This time, Adler feels the aircraft shudder. Rounds have hit something, but not enough to kill the engines. The machine is wounded, not dying. Smoke starts to trail from one nacelle. Oil pressure begins to fall. Options shrink. Below, the fake airfield waits, looking as innocent and silent as it did in the photographs. But just beyond its edges, in cleverly concealed positions, real anti-aircraft guns are now angled skyward. Their crews track the damaged German aircraft as it limps over the runway that has never known a real takeoff. Orders go out over field telephones. Hold fire until he is committed. Do not give him a reason to crash short or turn away. Adler realizes with a cold clarity that he might not make it back to France, even if the Spitfires break off. One engine is losing power. The controls feel heavy. There is rising vibration in the airframe that suggests something important has been bent in a way it should not be. He looks down and sees the neat, inviting strip of runway beneath him. Logic, stripped of all larger context, draws a straight line. This is the nearest place to put the aircraft down in one piece. Hoch knows what landing in enemy territory means, but he also knows the mathematics of altitude, airspeed, and engine failure. There is no heroic speech, no argument. Survival, even as a prisoner, is better than turning the aircraft into a burning crater with both of them inside. They make the unthinkable sound almost routine. We put it down there. We destroy the documents. We survive the crash. We wait for the war to end. Adler throttles back the failing engine and sets up a circuit for landing, fighting the aircraft all the way. The Spitfires hang back now, watchful but no longer firing. It is as if they are escorting him in. The absurdity of it would be funny in another life. A German reconnaissance machine being shepherded by British fighters onto what it believes is a safe RAF runway. As the wheels touch the ground, Adler feels something wrong in the response. The surface is not what a proper hard-surfaced runway should feel like. It is bumpier, less certain. One wing dips as a disguised rut grabs at the undercarriage. The aircraft slews, skids, and shudders to a halt in a spray of dirt and torn grass. Silence follows, broken only by the ticking of cooling metal and the pounding of two hearts. Then the illusion tears. From what looked like empty fields and harmless buildings, figures explode into view. Soldiers rise from slit trenches and from behind embankments. Weapons are trained on the cockpit. Vehicles dart out from cover where no vehicles seemed to exist a minute ago. The airfield that looked so solid in the photographs reveals itself, at ground level, to be a stage. Hangars with no depth, aircraft with no engines, structures with painted windows. Hoch stares through the cracked canopy and understands in one sickening wave exactly what has happened. The airfield they risked so much to verify is not just a fake target. It is a net, and they have flown straight into it. The Spitfires circle overhead like patient shepherd dogs watching a trapped animal. The British ground troops shout orders in English that need no translation. Hands up. Out. Move. In that moment, the operation shifts phase. The fake airfield has done more than distract bombs. It has captured something far more valuable than a load of explosives. A living crew with their knowledge, their codes, and their radio. The wooden aircraft and painted hangars were never the end of the plan. They were the bait. Now, with Adler and Hoch alive on the ground, and their aircraft mostly intact, the trap is ready for its next, far deadlier use. The moment Adler and Hoch are pulled from the wreck, the wooden airfield stops being just a clever construction and becomes a crime scene for intelligence officers. British soldiers move in tight, practiced patterns around the crippled aircraft. Weapons stay trained on the two Germans, but the real focus is already shifting to the cockpit, the radio set, and the bags of documents that might still be inside. Within minutes, the scene is swarming with men who do not wear pilot wings, but carry clipboards and cameras. Adler and Hoch are separated before they can exchange more than a few broken words. Bags are pulled over their heads for the journey, not out of cruelty, but to deny them any sense of where they are being taken. The last thing Hoch sees before darkness closes in is a glimpse of one of the hangars from ground level, the painted canvas rippling in the wind. The sheer audacity of it hits him like a physical blow. They did all this just for us. No, not just for us. For what comes next. They are driven to an interrogation center that looks from the outside like an ordinary country house. Inside, nothing is ordinary. There are rooms designed to make men talk without ever laying a hand on them. Bright lights, uncomfortable chairs, long silences, files already prepared with their names, units, and missions, pieced together from signals intelligence and previous captures. The British have been watching the Third Air Fleet for a long time. Adler is the first to sit under the light. He expects threats, shouting, accusations. What he gets instead is something more unsettling. A calm man with tidy hair and a clipped accent who offers him a cigarette and addresses him by rank and name without looking at any notes. Oberleutnant Friedrich Adler, twin-engined reconnaissance pilot. You have flown missions over the Midlands, Liverpool, the Bristol Channel. Your last flight was tasked from Lille. The target was an airfield in Kent. The interrogator does not need Adler to confirm any of this. Saying it out loud serves a different purpose. It establishes dominance without overt violence. It shows Adler that what he knows is, in many areas, already known. That makes the things he has not said yet stand out like dark gaps on a bright page. When the questions shift, they do so gently. Radio procedures, call signs, frequencies. Has he ever had to change them suddenly? Under what circumstances? Does he recall any standing orders about what to transmit if forced to land? Hawk faces a similar pattern. The man across from him knows the type of camera installed in their aircraft, its focal length, its usual film load. He knows roughly how many photographs Hoch could have taken on a single pass over the target. He knows how long it would take to develop them after landing. He acts as if the entire mission has already happened and is just being replayed. In a sense, that is true. The British have been on the receiving end of enough German reconnaissance to predict its logic. Bits of information come out. None of them, on their own, would look dramatic in a report. A routine phrase used to open a transmission. A confirmation code when a target is verified. The way a pilot is supposed to phrase an urgent message about a high-value discovery. The names of operations officers who like everything in writing. The interrogators are not looking for a confession. They are building a script. Meanwhile, back at the fake airfield, a different kind of work is underway. The German aircraft is being carefully examined and repaired just enough to function as a prop in a new production. Bullet holes are patched, damaged components are stabilized. The radio set, the heart of what the British really want, is tested and retested. Can it still transmit? Will it sound to German ears like their own familiar voice from across the channel? When the idea is finally spoken aloud in a secure room in London, it sounds insane even to some of the men who have spent their careers in deception. Use their radio to speak in their name. Confirm the airfield as a real, high-value target. Then wait for them to come, not with one fragile reconnaissance machine, but with a formation of bombers, heavy with fuel and explosives. Bombers that will believe they are attacking a soft, poorly defended British fighter base, not flying into a ring of prepared guns and fighters. The objections are immediate and real. The Germans are not fools. They will be listening for any hint of wrongness in voice, phrasing, or timing. If they suspect the radio is compromised, they could change codes and procedures overnight. The window for this kind of play is narrow and dangerous, but the potential reward is immense. Every bomber destroyed attacking a wooden airfield is a bomber that will never drop its load on London, Coventry, or a real RAF station. The plan that emerges is a blend of cold mathematics and brutal theater. Adler and Hoch will not be used as puppets. The British know that a voice under duress sounds wrong, even across a crackling wireless set. Instead, they will use what the two men have already given them: knowledge of call signs, authentication sequences, and the tone and structure of a typical mission report. A fluent German speaker, trained to mimic Luftwaffe radio discipline, will speak. He will send a short, urgent message that fits exactly into the pattern the 3rd Air Fleet expects to hear after a successful reconnaissance flight. The message is simple, almost boring on the surface. Target confirmed. New fighter station. In Kent operational. Multiple aircraft observed on the ground. Facilities intact. High-value objective. Request prioritization for bombing operations. The time, the phrasing, the code groups at the beginning and end all match what Adler would have sent if he had made it back to Lille. On the German side, in an operations room, thick with stale smoke and fatigue, There is no reason to doubt it. Their aircraft took off. British fighters were active. Radio contact is made. Then silence. It is easy to assume the worst. The crew did not survive the return leg. But before they died, they sent the crucial information. On the British side, as soon as that message goes out, everyone involved understands what they have just set in motion. Somewhere across the channel, men are planning a bombing raid based on words crafted in an English room. They are marking the fake airfield on their maps as a real killing ground. They are calculating fuel loads, bomb loads, courses that thread through known radar gaps. None of them will be told that the target is a stage set. They will brief and strap in and take off, believing they are about to strike a blow against fighter command. The night chosen for the raid is clear enough to fly, but dark enough to hide in. British radar stations are fully alert. The operators have seen this pattern before, a buildup of contacts over the French coast, forming into a loose but coherent mass. This is not a single reconnaissance flight. This is a proper run. Controllers begin vectoring night fighters into position and passing bearings to anti-aircraft batteries. Around the fake airfield, guns that stayed silent when Adler flew in are now fully manned and loaded. Searchlights are tested and then hooded, waiting. From the perspective of a German bomber crew, the approach feels like countless others. Long minutes of flying over black water. The gradual appearance of a dark coastline with scattered pinpricks of light. The constant tension between the desire to stare down at the enemy and the need to maintain formation. They trust the target intelligence given to them. A new airfield, many fighters, a chance to hurt the RAF where it lives. Some of them picture Spitfires burning on the ground. Others picture promotion. None of them picture wooden aircraft and hollow hangars. As the bombers cross into British airspace, ground-based radar tracks them with ruthless precision. The fake airfield, dark and quiet in the fields of Kent, begins its final transformation. Dummy lights snap on in carefully planned patterns to suggest runway markers. A few controlled fires are lit in barrels to mimic activity or previous damage. To an approaching bomber looking through a bomb sight at night, it looks like a station under strain but still functioning. A perfect opportunity. When the first wave lines up on the target, bomb bay doors creak open. The bomb aimers call small corrections over intercom. Left a little. Steady. Steady. Release. The bombs fall toward what they think are fuel dumps, hangars, and parked aircraft. In reality, they are dropping into a box ringed with hidden guns and prowled by fighters that have been patiently waiting at altitude. The first explosions do exactly what the British want them to do. They light up the night. Brief, violent blossoms of fire and shockwave illuminate the outlines of the fake airfield and, more importantly, silhouette the bombers against the sky. Searchlights snap on, converging on those silhouettes. Anti-aircraft guns open up in disciplined, controlled barrages. Not the wild, panicked fire of a surprise target, but the measured, practiced fury of crews who know exactly where their enemy will be. For the German crews, the next minutes are chaos of the worst kind. What was supposed to be a punishing raid on a soft ground target turns into a deadly funnel. Fighters drop out of the darkness, guns already firing. Flak bursts bracket formations with terrifying accuracy. Radio channels fill with shouted warnings, calls for help, sudden cutoffs. A bomber peels away, trailing fire. Another seems to hang in the air for a moment, then disintegrates into falling pieces. On the ground, the wooden fighters and canvas hangars take their measured punishment. Splinters fly, paint burns, structures collapse in convincing ruin. Every bomb that lands on them is a bomb that does not land on a real aircraft, a real fuel depot, or a real barracks somewhere else. The men who built the fake airfield watch from slit trenches and dugouts as their handiwork is torn apart, and feel no sorrow for the loss. This is the end they always intended. By the time the surviving bombers claw their way back into the safety of darkness and turn for home, the cost is brutally clear even without precise numbers. Crews are missing. Formations are ragged. Aircraft that left France trimmed and steady now limp across the channel with damaged engines and wounded men on board. In the morning, empty chairs in briefing rooms will tell the full story. On the German side, the report will say that a British fighter station was heavily bombed, with multiple fires observed. The loss of aircraft will be attributed to strong enemy defenses. The possibility that the airfield was never real will not be mentioned. In Britain, the after-action summaries will look very different. They will list enemy bombers destroyed, damaged, or probably destroyed. They will note minimal real damage to infrastructure, aside from the planned sacrifice of decoys. They will quietly circulate a phrase that is half joke, half respect. The movie set worked. Behind those dry lines lies a hard truth. An elaborate illusion, constructed out of timber, fabric, paint, and nerve, has wiped out a real slice of the Luftwaffe's strength. For Adler and Hoch, now just numbers in prisoner files, the knowledge of what their last mission enabled will filter through in fragments over time. A rumor from a guard, a snatch of radio, the realization that the airfield they helped to confirm became a magnet for their own bombers. It is a cruel knot of cause and effect that war ties without pity. They were not villains or heroes in that chain, just men caught between two sides willing to use any tool available. The fake airfield in Kent will not last long. Once its purpose is fulfilled, there is no need to maintain the illusion at that scale. Rain and neglect will finish what the bombs began. The wooden fighters will rot. The canvas hangars will sag and tear. But the idea they embodied will outlive them. The operation shows, in one concentrated burst, how far the war in the air has moved beyond simple contests of metal and horsepower. Brains, nerve, and the willingness to weaponize deception have become as deadly as any engine. In years to come, when larger deceptions are planned on the beaches of Normandy and across the entire map of Europe, men in quiet rooms will remember what happened over that patch of Kent. They will remember that, for one brief, astonishing moment, a collection of wooden aircraft and painted buildings did what whole squadrons sometimes failed to do. It drew the enemy in, held him there, and broke him. All because when a German pilot looked through his camera and a bomber crew looked through their sights, they saw exactly what they expected to see, and nothing of what was really waiting for them.